Okay, welcome to this tutorial on how to use Git. Git is a version control system that's used in the IT industry extensively. It's a way of managing iterations and changing code amongst a group. It involves pulling and pushing files. It's a fairly complex process. We're going to start with the very basics, and the first way to do that is to set up. Once you get up to sort of higher levels, you'll be actually using Git through Git Bash, which is a command line. So I'm just going to show you that here, where you'll actually be writing instructions, you'll be typing everything through a command, you're pushing files, doing exactly the same. It's just done the command line because it's a lot quicker than using a graphical interface. But we're going to start by using a graphical interface, a GUI. We're going to use what's called Tortoise Git, and that actually overlays Git for desktop. And that gives us a really nice, easy to use graphical user interface. So I'm going to show you, most of this is actually about how to set it up, not so much how to use it. So to start with, we need to configure it. So I'm going to start by pressing my Windows key on my keyboard, searching for Tortoise, and I'm looking for the Tortoise settings app. So look for the Tortoise icon and the settings. Sometimes you'll find it down here, not up like mine. And I'm going to click on that, and we need to configure a couple of things to start with. The first is we need to go here into the Git on the left, and you need to put your full name, and you need to put your email address as you used in GitHub, so your school email address, and that's a requirement. So if you want to press pause, go off and do that and come back, that would be great. Then once you've done that, you'll go down to network here, and you'll need to check enable proxy server. You'll need to type in the server address proxy.det.newsouthwales.edu.au, port 8080. You'll have your username with @DETNSW, no dots, just @DETNSW, and then your portal password. And it's really important, if you ever change your password, you'll need to come back into these settings again and change your password. So again, if you want to press pause, go off and do that and come back, that would be really good. So we are now set up and configured, ready to go. We need to start using it. So the first thing we need to do is have a repository. So the first place is, for many of you, you're going to create a blank repository and then clone that to your desktop and start adding files and pushing files backwards and forwards. I'm actually starting with a repository I've already got. But the process is exactly the same. I'm going to click here and get the clone, and I'm going to get this URL here. I'll click here to copy it. I've now copied that. I will then go to a folder on my desktop, on my network drive. So you'll want to go to your student network drive, into your IST folder. I've actually already done this, so I'm just going to delete that really quickly so we can do it again. It's now gone. I'm now going to right click, and we've got these options here. So we want to git clone. So we're going to clone that Git we've got. It's already picked up, I copied and pasted the repository here. And it's telling me I'm going to save it. These settings you'll play with a little bit later, but for 99% of the time, you just leave this as is, and we'll go okay. What it's actually doing now is grabbing all those files from GitHub, saving them into this folder here, and includes a Git file that actually is what's documenting all the changes you make as you go. Okay, so it just takes a few seconds, and that comes down. So obviously the bigger the files, the more the files, the longer this takes. But once you start going backwards and forwards, it's only uploading files that have been changed. So it'll only actually push new files or pull new files that have been changed in the repository. So I'll go close. So I've now got this folder here, and if you look here, I've got all these files here, and they're exactly the same as these files here. Okay. So, and this works, you've got multiple people working on it. This little Git file is the configuration file, and it's documenting everything that you're doing in the background. And so it allows multiple people to be making changes to code, and it tracks all that and manages that for you. Okay, so just to show that's how this works, we'll make a couple of little changes. I'm going to delete this file here, just to show you a delete. I'm going to add a new file. I'm going to go new. I'm just going to add a text document called 212, enter, and I'm going to make a very small change to this CSS sheet. So let me just open that in Notepad++. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to remove a line here. I'm going to add a line here to show you that you can remove and add. So I'm missing my semicolon there. I'm now going to save that file. okay? So I've now made changes within this repository. So I go back where this folder is, and this little green tick here is from Tortoise, so it's telling us that this is a repository. I right click, and I'm now going to do git commit. And what that's going to do is, first of all, commit the changes to the git file. So it's just done a quick process, and it's found that I've removed this file, I've added 3 lines, and I've removed lines. So it's actually looking very granular within that CSS style sheet as to what changes have been made. And it's also noticed that there's a new file, and I need to check that to say, yes, I want to add that file. If I don't check that, it actually doesn't add that. And then what you do is when you commit files, you actually do a message about what you've done. So I'm going to say removed text file, added a text file, and text file, and typing too quickly here, file, and changed font size, okay, in style.css. And what that means is, you'll see where this comes along later, this helps you track down changes and work through things as a team or an individual, particularly when you've done lots of updates. So what I'm going to do is press commit first, and all that's actually doing is it's actually updating the git file, that little .git you saw, with telling it, documenting the changes we've made. So that's all it's done. It actually hasn't pushed. There'll be no changes if I press F5 here. You'll see that file is still there. The new file hasn't been added, and if we clicked on that style CSS, the changes haven't occurred there. So then I now want to push those changes to the repository. So I'm going to push, and it's saying it's going to push into the master. And again, so it's now pushing all the changes, but only the changes I made. It won't actually push files that weren't touched. It actually won't push. So it's a very efficient system. So if we now go back to GitHub and hit F5, you'll see this file's arrived, the other file's gone. We're going to style CSS in a second. You'll see the change button, but see these comments here, so you can see when these files were last changed and why. And if I click into style.css, you can actually see that that was gone, and where I added font 16 is now there. Okay, and we can actually make a pull request and pull those lines out later, and it tracks all those. So even if those lines move, it will still remember this change, and I can pull this even though after a few changes we might add some CSS up here, and this line is now down at line 27. I can make a pull request for what the change, the commit I just did, and it will extract that and return the font size. It'll undo all my changes effectively. And GitHub's really important because it's a great way to have a professional portfolio. So as a student, you can actually have a folder of all the different applications you do and the programs you do. So we're going to be using this extensively. Okay, so really, really brief intro. There's a lot more to it, but that's just a start to get you configured and get you up and running with Git. Thank you very much.